It was a quiet spring night in Minnesota. A 19-year-old college student left a friend's party, driving along empty gravel roads. He was calm, collected. He even called his parents for help when his car slid into a ditch. For nearly an hour, they stayed on the phone together, guiding him through the darkness. And then suddenly, a sharp cry echoed through the line. The call cut out. Brandon Swanson was never seen again. This is one of the most haunting disappearances in American true crime history. A mystery without evidence. A call that ended in silence. And a family still waiting for answers. Brandon Swanson wasn't a runaway. He wasn't troubled or in trouble with the law. He was a 19-year-old freshman, studying wind energy technology at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. Friends described him as independent, funny, and a little stubborn, the kind of kid who could take care of himself but wasn't afraid to ask for help. On May 13, 2008, classes had ended for the semester. Like many students, Brandon joined a small group of friends in Canby, Minnesota, for a low-key celebration. There were no wild parties, no loud music, just a typical evening with classmates. Around midnight, he said his goodbyes, got into his green Chevy Lumina, and began the drive home. The trip should have been routine. But Brandon would never make it back. The rural backroads of western Minnesota are deceptively difficult at night. Flat farmland stretches for miles, with unlit gravel roads crisscrossing the countryside. At 2 a.m., with no traffic, no lights, and no landmarks, every turn looks the same. Somewhere near the border of Lyon and Lincoln counties, Brandon's car slipped off a gravel road into a ditch. It wasn't a crash, more of a slide. The car was stuck just enough that he couldn't drive it out, though there was no damage. Brandon didn't panic. He pulled out his phone and called some friends for help. But it was late. No one answered. So, he called the people he trusted most, his parents. Brian and Annette Swanson picked up the call. Brandon explained that he wasn't injured, just stuck. He believed he was close to Lind, a small town only about 10 minutes from their home in Marshall. His father got in the family car and drove out, keeping Brandon on the line. Brandon told him to look for his headlights. He flashed them repeatedly, but his father never saw them. What began as a minor inconvenience was about to spiral into something chilling. Brian and Annette stayed on the phone with Brandon, trying to find him. They drove up and down the gravel roads near Lind. Brandon described what he saw: fences, fields, even distant lights in the horizon. But nothing matched. The family couldn't locate him. Finally, Brandon decided to leave his car and walk toward the lights he thought he saw. Maybe a farmyard, maybe a town. His parents followed in their own car, trying to intercept him. For nearly an hour, Brandon narrated his steps. He sounded calm, logical, determined. His voice carried no fear. Then, without warning, his tone changed. Brandon exclaimed, "Oh my!" His words cut short. The line went dead. His parents called back again and again. The phone rang, then went to voicemail. And in that moment, Brandon was gone. At first light, the Swansons reported Brandon missing. But the initial police response was dismissive. Brandon was 19, legally an adult. Officers suggested he may have simply chosen to disappear, perhaps after drinking. His parents insisted otherwise. He had called them for help. He wanted to be found. Hours later, officers located Brandon's car. But it wasn't where Brandon thought it was. Instead of being near Lind, the Lumina was discovered near Taunton, a staggering 25 miles away. The car showed no sign of foul play. No damage. No broken glass. Brandon's keys, wallet, and phone were gone, carried with him. The discovery raised a terrifying question. How could Brandon have been so wrong about where he was? Investigators pulled his phone records. Calls to his parents had pinged off a tower near Taunton, confirming his true location. Search teams fanned out across farmland. Volunteers, police, and tracking dogs traced Brandon's scent from the car. His trail stretched down gravel paths, across fields, and directly toward the Yellow Medicine River. For 3 miles, the dogs followed his steps. At the riverbank, the trail ended. Authorities believe Brandon may have tried to cross. In the dark, disoriented, and exhausted, even shallow water can be deadly. Divers combed the river. Boats dragged the current. But no trace of Brandon was found. Not his phone. Not his clothes. Not his body. The water kept its silence. Days turned into weeks. The search expanded. Farmers opened their land. Helicopters swept the fields. ATVs scoured the gravel roads. Every outbuilding, every ditch, every grove of trees was inspected. And yet, nothing was recovered. Brandon had simply vanished. Sheriff officials noted something strange. The dogs had tracked him with purpose, in a straight line toward the river. He wasn't wandering aimlessly. He seemed to know where he was going. But why would he cross water in the middle of the night? Was it desperation? Determination? Or something darker? The most immediate theory was drowning. The Yellow Medicine River can be shallow in places, knee to waist deep, but unpredictable. If Brandon slipped, weighed down by clothes and fatigue, it could have been fatal. But the river was searched again and again. In most drownings, remains eventually surface. In Brandon's case, nothing was ever found. No fabric. No trace. Did the river take him? Or was it a false lead, a final location where his scent lingered, but not where his life ended? Another possibility was hypothermia. Nighttime temperatures in May can drop dangerously low. Wet clothing accelerates the body's loss of heat. Exhaustion leads to collapse. If Brandon survived the river crossing and continued walking, he may have succumbed to exposure. The farmland is vast. There are countless hidden places where a body could remain undiscovered, even after extensive searches. But after more than a decade? With no bones, no belongings, no remains at all? That absence raises doubts. The sharp cry at the end of the call raises unsettling possibilities. Could Brandon have encountered someone in the fields that night? There were no reports of strangers. No signs of a struggle near the car. But could a confrontation have occurred further along his path? Authorities caution that no evidence suggests foul play. But the possibility lingers, whispered in online forums and theorized by amateur sleuths. Was it an accident or an ambush? Some have speculated Brandon staged his disappearance. But those who knew him disagree. He was close to his family. He called home for help, not escape. He had plans for the future. If he wanted to vanish, why leave his car stuck in a ditch? Why end the call with a panicked exclamation? This theory is widely dismissed, yet it remains one of the few options left. The contradictions remain maddening. Brandon believed he was near Lind, but his car was near Taunton, 25 miles away. He described seeing lights, but his parents saw nothing. He walked for nearly an hour, calmly guiding his parents, and then, nothing. How does a 19-year-old vanish so completely? In their grief, Brandon's parents turned pain into purpose. They fought to change the law. In 2009, Minnesota passed Brandon's Law, requiring police to take all missing person cases seriously, no matter the age. Because of Brandon, Countless searches begin immediately. Countless families are spared the delays the Swansons endured. But for Brian and Annette, the law is not enough. Their son is still missing. At the Swanson home, a single light burns every night. It has never been turned off since the night Brandon vanished. It remains lit until he returns, or until answers are found. For neighbors passing through Marshall, Minnesota, that light is more than a symbol. It is a reminder. Somewhere, a young man disappeared, and a family waits in the dark. The case of Brandon Swanson is one of silence. A car abandoned. A phone call cut short. A trail that vanishes at the water's edge. More than a decade later, no answers have surfaced. Only questions. What happened that night in May 2008? Did the river claim him? Did the elements overwhelm him? Or was something far more sinister waiting in the fields? Let us know what you believe in the comments below. And if you found this case as haunting as we did, subscribe for more chilling mysteries that refuse to be forgotten. Because somewhere, someone knows the truth. And until then, the light in Minnesota will continue to burn.